Hey everybody, happy Sunday. I hope that wherever you are and whatever you are doing, you are having an amazing day. If you haven't already, make sure you go and check out the chicken and garden update, which already went live on this channel earlier today. In it, I'm talking about enjoying some of the first fruits and vegetables from my garden this year. It's really nice to have the summer and all of the fruits of our labours finally being available to enjoy. That's not what I want to talk to you about today, though. I want to talk to you about travel, specifically travel for work. So I know that companies around the world have different attitudes towards working in the office and remote working, and some of you watching this are in jobs where you cannot remotely work. You have to travel to the office every day. I know that there are some of you who are lucky enough to be able to work from home, or perhaps exclusively work from home, unless we're on location filming a car review or going to a specific event. That's where I sit, because I work where my company is based. Perks of being the boss, I guess. But there are some of you who may have to travel every day to a local office in a nearby town, or perhaps work remotely, who nevertheless have to travel for work. And when you do travel for work, may be asked to book your own travel and then submit your receipts and get reimbursement from the company that you work for. That is the normal way of doing it, certainly here in North America, or perhaps you work for a large enough company where they have a travel department that books travel for you. But I want to talk to you today about how your company, specifically how your boss, expects you to travel. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is that someone close to me recently had to travel between two cities that are 200-300 miles apart. So what's that? 500 kilometers-ish. And they had to get from one city to the other city for work. They were going to stay there for a couple of days, and then they were going to come back and work locally in their local office. And there was a train that goes between those two cities, and they could theoretically get a train ticket. The trains between those two cities are pretty unreliable. They very often get delayed, and their company kind of expects them to fly rather than take the train, even if the train costs less, even if the train, yes, it might take a little bit more time, but the carbon emissions of going by train are far lower than the carbon emissions associated with flying. And of course, that flight time, yes, it might be fairly quick, an hour and a half, but the actual impact of driving to the airport, waiting at the airport for 3 hours, getting on the plane, flying to the other airport, waiting for your bag claim, etc., it takes a lot of time. When you could just literally rock up at your local train station, park outside, get on the train and go. I know it's not just a North American thing either. I know people in Europe who've had that same experience, where if they were traveling for their own needs, they might just jump on the train or they might just drive, but it is a given that if they're doing it for work, they're going to fly. A good example would be going from London to Edinburgh, for example, for a business meeting. You might be able to rock up in London and get a sleeper train, leave the night before, arrive the next morning in Edinburgh refreshed after a night's sleep on the train, and do your day's work and then get the train home. And that would be a longer trip for sure, but it might be expected at the company you work at that, you rock up at the airport at 9 o'clock in the morning, you get on the plane, you leave at noon, you fly up, you have a 1 p.m. business meeting, and then you go to the airport, you leave Edinburgh at like 5 or 6 in the evening, and you're back in London in time for tea. That is a way I think that a lot of businesses have come to expect business travel be taken out. I think partly because, when I was growing up in the 80s and the 90s, it wasn't unusual, certainly for C-level, so CEO, chief executive, chief financial officer, chief technical officer, that C-level suite, to jump on a plane in London or Paris, go to New York for a business meeting, and then turn around and be home the same day, because Concorde made that possible. You were crossing the Atlantic at supersonic speeds, and carbon emissions be damned. That was a very 80s, 90s thing to do. But these days we are much more cognizant of carbon emissions. The problem is, the higher up in a company you become, the more expensive you are to either your client, or the more money that your company can extract from your time, the more likely it is that that company is going to expect you to fly. I know, for example, that Walmart here in the US, which has many, many issues. Walmart has many, many issues in terms of ethics and how the companies run and how they support or don't support their staff. And I'm not going to kind of weigh in on that because that's beyond the remits of this video. But it's well known that Walmart has a fleet of airplanes that they specifically keep just to fly their executives to different stores in America. And the reason they do that is because, and there's a great Wendover Productions video on that. Sam's done a great video, so go and check that out, on why, for Walmart, they decided that having a fleet of private jets that they maintain and fly, rather than sending their staff on public flights with everybody else, scheduled flights, why that is better to have the private jet in terms of their time. But of course, in terms of emissions, one could easily argue that that is not the case. And so I would love to know how the company you work for expects you to travel. If you have tried to say, okay, I want to take my electric car, I'm happy to drive my own vehicle, but maybe I want to stop overnight in a hotel on the way, or can you book me a hotel so that I can drive, or can I take a train? It's going to take longer, but I would prefer to travel by train. Is that something that the company you work for or their clients are okay with? Or is it, no, we want you to fly 500 miles to a business meeting, turn around and fly back, carbon emissions be damned? Because, that is a very difficult position, because at the end of the day, we all have to earn money to afford the things in life that are either essential or pleasurable, or both. And we have to be able to make ends meet. And if you are in a job where it is expected that you will be at a point and do a certain thing and meet the person or people that you need to meet, turning around and saying, I'm trying to live a green life, I would really rather not fly, is A, not considered okay for the most part, unless you are working for a truly amazing company. And for the second part, it can cause problems within your company, either between you and your line manager, you and your client, or just other employees who are like, why is that person trying to be different? So let me know how your company deals with company travel. Is it something you have a choice on, or is it, no, you have to travel the way they say, when they say it, and, emissions be damned. On that note, we are done with today's video. If you do have those comments, I would love to hear them. Drop them in the comments section. You can also reach out to us on Mastodon. We are trying to remember to post a Mastodon a Mastodon post for every video we make, both on this channel, Transport Evolved Take 2, and on the main channel. You can also reach out to us on Discord. We have a very lively and engaging Discord chat room. If you are not part of that community, definitely worth joining there. You can also reach out to us if you are a Patreon supporter in the Patreon webpage. There will be a link to this video on the Patreon page and you can leave a comment there. If you want more, subscribe and follow the links below to regularly support us with a YouTube membership or a Patreon subscription. You'll also find links to our Ko-fi, Bitcoin and swag store, as well as that aforementioned Mastodon server. And if you've noticed us popping up in your video stream a little bit more lately, I think that's because YouTube has changed the algorithm, but just ding the bell anyway, to be sure. Scrolling on my right is the list of amazing charged up supporters, and shout outs go out to our V to G Patreon supporters. They are Pedro Mora Pinheiro, Alan Tupper, Andrew Martin, Bennett Elder, Brophy Wolf, Chris Maxwell, Cyprian Laplace, Dan Blair, Gordon C, Hay Esker, John Tramal, Carl Fox, Mark Eggleton, Peter Dillinger, Raging Fellows, Sean Tucker, Stefan Framgen, Stephen Williams, Tesla in the Gong, Paul Bricknell, Tony Moss, Carl Hodgson, Chris Centaur, Denny Hyde, Lance Schlall, Linda Irish, Mike Weeder and Paul Nelson. And finally, big thanks to our off-grid supporters. They are Paul Conway, Kevin Burrowbridge, Stephen O'Donoghue, Jim Burness, Robert Flannery, Aaron Hahn, Ellery Hansley, Rory Litwin, JP Fagerback, Dave Kitchen, Andrew Glenn, Anonymous Freak, Chris and Michael Johnson, Clay Witt, CPU Freak 101, Eric Knack, Joe Hughes, John Henderson, Laura Reynolds, Marcel Ward, Matthew Drobnak, Nigel S, Reggie Watts, Will Graylin, and of course, Ian. Don't forget that we make videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday and Saturday over on the main channel. A day earlier, you get to see them if you are a Patreon supporter or YouTube channel member. And then, of course, on a Sunday, you can join me here on Transport Evolved Take 2 for our Sunday Musing, which is what you've just watched, plus our chicken and garden update. A little bit of programming note, I am going to be away for the entirety of next week, as is the rest of the team. We're all taking July 4th off. If you are celebrating, I hope you have a lovely day celebrating kicking my lot out of the US. And until next time, keep evolving.